I'd like to call to order the Proctor City Council meeting for Monday, July 19th, 2021. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perform roll call at this time. Councilor Benson?
Present.
Councilor Reuter?
Present.
Councilor Johnson?
Present.
Councilor DeWall?
Present.
Mayor Ward is also present. Let the minutes show everyone else in attendance. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the City Council meeting held on Monday, July 6, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Councilor Reuter made the motion. Councilor DeWall seconds that. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Before approving the agenda, I do have a couple additions I'd like to add. I'd like to add 6E, a supplemental letter agreement between SEH and the City of Proctor. I'd like to add 6F, Hoghead Fireworks. That is all I would like to add. Any other additions before we make a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Benson?
if I might, 6G, South St. Louis County Fair Resolution.
Thank you. Any other additions? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So move.
Councilor Johnson made the motion. Is there a second? I'll second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. At this time, we'll take comments and suggestions from the citizens present or watching via the YouTube channel. Call-in number for that is 218-628-6289. Again, that's 218-628-6289. We'll give that a minute or so. Hearing none, we'll move on. Looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Sent by Councilor Reuter. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Benson.
thank you. If we could pull 4A and B, please.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. That will bring us to 4A, unofficial PETA minutes from July 6, 2021. Councilor Benson.
Thank you very much. So on the PETA minutes, there was an item under 3A about a motion and a second to seek quotes from 2 tree removal services. I had a third that was a local one as well. So I could contact the administrator later on after the meeting, but, you know, sometimes it's nice to get more than two, considering that they're local and have an interest in Proctor.
Yeah, and just so you're aware, Councilor Benson, that was the thought behind that motion and second, to go after a couple local contractors to do that. If there's a third one and we missed it, I don't see why you couldn't get with Administrator Rich and
And if it's, you know, too late for this time around, I understand, but, you know, put it on the list, because there's always a tree that needs to come down.
yeah.
More that needs to go up there.
Yeah, and I don't know what bearing that would have since the motion was already made at the PETA meeting, but we can talk about it. Any other discussion on that?
Nope, that was it.
Thank you. With that being said, we'll, do we need a motion on that then, Administrator Rich?
I don't think so.
Okay. That will bring us to 4B then, Parks and Rec Committee minutes from 6/10/2021. Councilor Benson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Council. Even though the Parks and Rec meeting minutes were approved at the June 21st meeting, I believe, this at least gives me an opportunity to go back and address something that I had missed, and that was a motion, a second, to recommend to the City Council about softball field 1 being sold to the school for $1. And I do have, you know, some concerns, you know, considering it's 6.87 acres and it's valued at almost $52,000. So I think, and it includes the playground for everybody. So as I read that, you know, the way the minutes read, I just had some additional questions.
I guess go ahead, Councilor Benson.
Oh, and because it is part of the Regional Recreation Center, I do not know if the LCCMR would allow us to sell or transfer that property.
And these are just the minutes from the Parks and Rec meeting. I believe it hasn't been presented to council yet because there's more discussion that needs to take place. Is that correct?
That is correct. And Councilor Wowerty, you can report since you were on the committee meeting, or I can as well.
Well, yeah, sure. I think, you know, the thing about that is we're not looking at if this was we were to sell this to the school, it would just be enough property so that they get the outfield. They're not going to get a whole chunk of land. You know, we only own part of the outfield in that field. The rest is part of the school. So it'd only be enough so that the whole ball field is within school property.
Okay, so
And we did talk about whether or not that can be, you know, sold to the school. Maybe the fact that we're not changing the use of the property, it's just changing the ownership. Maybe they'd be okay with that, but unless we hear from the school that they want to proceed with something like that, there's no sense us, you know, rattling the cage of the DNR.
And I was a little confused about how this proposal came about, because the school finance committee has discussed the potential city proposal regarding the field. So when I read that, I think this was the city's idea of selling the property.
It was a discussion that I had with Mr. Steve Anderson. They would like to make improvements to the field, but they're uncomfortable doing it, being that they don't have ownership of all of the entire field. So we were brainstorming ways that they could do the improvements that they want to it. This was one of the solutions. So we brought it to the Parks and Rec Committee, that if this were to go forward, what would their recommendation be? We also brought it to PETA, that if this were to go forward, what would their recommendation be? So that when the school and the city are ready to negotiate, you have your recommendations in place already. But any final decision, of course, will come in front of the council.
So yeah, and I understand the discussion was with the school, but the school saying that the city initiated it. the city's proposal. So that was just trying to figure out where it came from and, you know, is it just a small little piece of the entire parcel?
Well, this started with a conversation the administrator had with Steve, and they were talking, somewhere in the school, they were talking about getting out of that field and relocating over to Clang Park, which would be a whole new, I don't know what they're gonna do with everything over there, Little League and things like that. And it'd be much easier if they could acquire the rest of the property here to just fix everything up where it is and keep using it. And that's kind of the way, you know, we do, as you can see under that comment there, that if they take it, you know, then what do we do with, and we gotta maintain the fields and do everything, you know, if they go over to Clang. So it'd probably end up costing us, and if we could, you know, if we sold them the outfield, and they were talking about putting in all new facilities there, actually some locker rooms and making better parking and things like that. So we thought that was probably the better way to go for the city, so we said that that's what we made this offer, that we look at maybe selling them the rest of the outfield for $1. But we didn't, I don't know how it came out of the school board that we initiated that, but we did tell them this.
I think that I wouldn't disagree that it was probably my idea, because when Steve Anderson came to me to tell me about his challenges with the space, I offered up, well, what if you owned the entire outfield? Would that solve your problem? And he said that would be a very good start to solving their problems. So I guess in a way, I initiated the idea.
Well, I'm not against the proposal. I was just trying to put all the pieces in because this sounded like a recommendation if it ever came up. So I was just, again, putting it together. And I guess the other piece I would like to know is what the maintenance cost might be on that parcel if the city had it. Because the maintenance was mentioned, increased cost, but it didn't give a figure.
Well, Councilor Benson, I'm sure we can find that out, but let's, rather than having Administrator Rich running those things down, let's wait and see where it's gonna go first. It might not go anywhere. They might go to Clang Park. They might stay here. Let's wait till we get there before we.
I was just gonna add, Councilor Benson, that I wouldn't consider it a proposal yet. It's an idea. When it hits a proposal form, I would expect that it would come before us here.
And again, since it was a recommendation to the city council, I didn't know in what form or fashion. So thank you very much. I appreciate the council's answers, and Administrator Rich. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on 4B?
Not from me.
Hearing none, we'll move on. That will bring us to 6A under new business, second reading ordinance 02-21, definition of a structure. In your packet is the second reading of ordinance 02-21, amending the definition of a structure. What they did was struck out the language "or anything not collapsible." Looking for a motion to approve ordinance 02-21, amending definition of a structure.
I'll make that motion.
Councilor Reuter made the motion, seconded by Councilor Johnson. Any further discussion? I guess I would say, I had conversations earlier regarding this, but if you go to Menards and buy a freestanding Rubbermaid storage locker, now you're gonna have to go to planning and zoning and get a conditional use permit on something like that? Is that correct?
You're proposing to put it in a location that's not allowed, like an encroachment on the right-of-way?
So only if it's in violation of setback?
Correct.
What's that? Zoning permit? So if I wanted to put up a Rubbermaid storage locker, I would have to purchase a zoning permit to do so. And in my opinion, I just think that's some oversight of government there to require our constituents to purchase a zoning permit to put up a Rubbermaid locker in their backyard. And that's my opinion on it, I suppose.
I'd like to take it a step further, if I may, Mr. Mayor. A lot of folks, like myself, have these 4-foot length, about 2-foot depth by about 3-foot high. And we use it to store cushions from the gazebo, screen, whatever. That now would require a zoning permit. So my recommendation, not to stop progress, but I think, and after having a discussion with the building official, I think we need to have like a minimum something size, like 30 square feet, or if they want to go by the gallon or something, because I, for one, would like to see those things, because people pick stuff up in their yard, they're put away, it's more hospitable as versus seeing things laying around in the front yard. And I get the point is to make sure we don't get into trouble with zoning and setbacks and this and that, but I mean, if I have a fence and it's on the property line and I have a 3-foot tall Rubbermaid container that I want to put next to the fence, technically I'm within that 5-foot side yard, and why couldn't I have one? And I guess I could, I just have to pay the 15 or 20 bucks, go before planning and zoning, which I think is a little micromanagement.
Yeah, I see your point. I don't think anyone's gonna claim one of those little Rubbermaid storage bins, which is what it is. I mean, it's, you put the pillows from your lawn furniture in there, that's what I do. It's inside our screen porch. You know, there's an axiom of interpretation that you're not supposed to interpret an ordinance or a statute to lead to absurd results. And I would say that would be an absurd result, somebody interpreting it that way. I don't think planning and zoning would do that, but at the same time, I see your point. I think from their perspective, what they were trying to do is head off people who say that, well, yeah, I can put it there, or it's temporary, that kind of thing. And it's not a structure because I can just take it apart. And they're trying to cut that off at the pass. But yeah, I mean, you could send it back to them, ask them to maybe narrow that a little bit, the definition of what a structure is.
And I like Councilor DeWall's idea of putting a size on it. I think that would clear up a lot of it.
If I may interject, doesn't the next sentence, temporary storage bin or units and the like are not considered structure? Doesn't that address a storage bin, a storage locker? It's not constructed material, it's a temporary storage bin.
Mr. Bray? Or Mr. Bray? Mr. Mayor?
Hold on, I'm just reading it here.
I agree with that, but then you read the next sentence, and what does it say?
That's what I'm
Except
looking
for
at.
if you have industrial zoning, then you'd need a conditional use permit.
Councilor Benson?
Thank you. Mr. Bray, is this part of the universal building code that the state has, or is this just something unique to Proctor?
I don't believe so. I think it's unique to Proctor.
Okay.
If I can give some background on what planning and zoning was using to make this decision, was they were having a disagreement about what collapsible means. Does collapsible mean like a plastic bin that pops together, like the storage bins, the lockers, or does it mean a 2x4 structure that has plastic tarp wrapped around it? Because you could collapse it technically in, a matter of minutes. And that was the disagreement and the issue that they were trying to solve with this language.
And I think if you had a minimum size, that would eliminate those two items, because I don't believe people are going to build a 2x3 with a tent and awning over it. They're going to build a carport. with canvas over it and call it collapsible.
The last one that we had, Counselor DeWall, I believe, Megan, wasn't it like a 4x5 structure? So it was well within it was in a very small structure, and this particular applicant had to come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission twice because of this collapsible nature of the, and then, it would fit any size restriction. Go ahead, Megan, sorry.
You just had the corrugated tin on the outside, so it was real. Not pleasant to look at. Parking it side by side.
Yeah, and he was, so as Megan described, it was like a 4x5 structure. It was made out of corrugated tin, zoning, and it was also placed not according to the setbacks. So there was an issue with the collapsible nature of the language and an issue with the size. I mean, if you put a size restriction, it's not going to regulate something like that.
But for that person's argument, couldn't have used that same sentence you just said, a temporary storage bin or unit and the like?
He did.
Did?
And planning and zoning did not agree that it was temporary in nature. I mean, we can definitely bring it back to planning and zoning to study and discuss.
Is there another option where if we left it like this, that in our, when you went to go get a permit, that if it was a collapsible structure of under a certain amount of size, then it only costs you $5 or something instead of having to pay 15 or 20 or something, so that we could regulate it, but it's not gonna be, something that people are gonna have to put out a lot of money for?
Well, and I'm looking at it as who's gonna police this, because I know if I go to Menards and buy a storage bin like you're talking about to throw pillows in, I'm not even gonna think I need to go to the city to get a permit for it. So who's gonna be policing it?
So, Mr. Mayor, would this also include those structures that you stick your vehicle under so sap doesn't fall, or
Carports?
carports, yeah?
But I think those would be, the size Counselor DeWall used, those would be far exceeding that limitation, correct?
Correct.
But that would be a decision planning and zoning would have to make. Well, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none? Oh,
Well, I would
Counselor
just-
Reuter.
I don't know if we should send it back to them or not, I kinda like, there should be something that allows somebody to have even a 4x8 if it's collapsible, takedown type or something like these little sheds or something. You shouldn't have to get a building permit for it, and who cares if it's right on the edge of the property line? It's not that big, and I don't know.
I agree.
I don't necessarily wanna just say, yeah, let's pass this, and then we
Vote.
have problems.
Yeah, we can put it to a vote, or the people that made the motion in the second can amend it. Counselor Johnson.
I'm wondering if we need to do, or send it back to planning and zoning to get more information from like other communities and what they're doing and their verbiage that they have in their, to take a look at this a little bit closer.
Yep.
And with that being said, then maybe we do need to take the motion
Do
back.
we need to withdraw the motion, or should we just call the question and vote it down?
You call the question, voting it down will be cleaner.
Okay. So there is a motion and a second on the
You
floor.
should follow it up with another motion with planning and zoning.
Any further discussion?
I would just advocate for pulling it, because I don't think the votes are there.
Well, we can always see.
We'll see. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Oppose? Aye.
Aye.
Roll call vote, Administrator Rich, unless you want me to perform it.
Nope, I can. Counselor Johnson,
No.
Counselor Roweeder,
No.
Counselor Benson,
No?
Counselor DeWall,
No.
Mayor Ward.
No. Motion fails. Is there another motion counselor would like to make regarding this matter?
Go ahead, Troy.
I was just gonna make a motion that we send this back to P and Z and have them either put in some type of minimum mark so that people don't have to pay to keep things hospitable in their yard, and further maybe do some research with other outside cities and see what they have. I'm sure we're not the first city to run into this.
Okay, you heard the
Second.
motion by Counselor DeWall, second by Counselor Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That'll bring us to 6B, Proctor Area Historical Society Letter of Request. In your packet was a letter from Russell Haberman, of the president of the Proctor Area Historical Society. Mr. Schwartzbauer is here to discuss the letter, so I'll give the floor to you.
I have nothing more to add other than what was at the June 21st, but stand ready to answer any questions you might have.
Does council have any questions for Mr. Schwartzbauer? I will start, I guess. So what exactly are you looking at here, Jim?
Obviously, what we'd really like is the forgiveness of the last $10,000 of the loan, so we can move on to pay off one more $5,000 loan we have, and then start putting any additional monies into capital improvements, which includes new tiles on the roof that we have here, but don't have the money to put them on. A little bit of other stuff for the probably the windows. Window sills will need some work for capital. And finally, we've had our furnace checked again and air conditioning, and I asked the individual, he said probably every about 12, 15 years, you probably need to replace the furnace. We've had it for about 7, so we need to start placing money aside. So the sooner we can be past our financial debt in loans, the sooner we can start taking care of some of the other capital improvements that we want to take care of on the property.
Okay. I know the last time you were here, a month ago or so, you had some ideas of putting money towards this loan payment towards other ideas or other entities out there.
Correct.
Is that something you'd still be interested
That's
in?
what we're interested in. We won't know until we see what other monies come from the 225 Club. We've been very fortunate that that is that, but that's what we're allocating the funds for. But yes, we would like to do more things with the school, more other stuff, perhaps scholarships. We don't know until we can get past our regular responsibilities. So I'm not a prognosticator, so I can't inform you just how long it will take for more monies to come in. It's just that to this date, the 225 Club, we've been able to pay off the $35,000 loan we had from the city, from the bank, the last 11,000 there, plus 10,000 here. So we've been doing pretty well with that account. We're very pleased with it. But you know, we don't know what other fundraisers might come our way. But right now, that's our intent. Take care of our loans, and our number one obligation is the loan right now to the city. And if you don't reduce it or end it, we will continue to pay $100 a month. We will then look, just like we did before, at next June and say, okay, this is how much we have in it, and then allocate X number of dollars to the city on the loan if that's the, you know. Again, we just have to get past it. We want to get debt-free. I think everybody does.
What's council's opinion on this? I mean, I got some ideas I'm sitting here thinking about, but you want me to start blabbing, or?
If I can, I'll start it off, Mr. Mayor. I'm not, for one, in forgiving anything yet on the loan. It was a loan that used taxpayers' dollars to loan to help for taxpayer items. I get that. I'm not against the school by any means, but I believe the city has its own obligations with the recent Facebookings of the flower garden on the corner. We could use money, earmark some of those payments towards the upkeep and maintenance of those, people volunteering to keep those gardens up, or we have a playground for everybody that we could earmark some of those dollars towards. Like I said, not that I'm against working with the school, but I think the city of Proctor has its own items. If we're gonna start earmarking dollars that are coming in, I'd like to see them earmarked towards the city of Proctor.
Counselor DeWall, you took the words right out of my mouth. We have a garden right out front of City Hall that you could use a lot of work. We got, I know Jim, you met with Administrator Rich and I probably a year ago now, maybe over a year ago, but you had some kind of neat ideas up for the property up there that maybe we could earmark money to.
Well, we still have a lot of ideas for up there. We're trying to work with school groups to have something during the week of Hogget. We do have a couple of things going on that I'm in charge of and Russell's in charge of. We're hoping that we can have more stuff in there, trying to make it more viable. We can also look for other tenants that might come into that particular. It is your building after all. It's not ours. We're just paying the upkeep on that building. You know, certainly entertain other groups that might want to be a part of it. Just recall that back into 2009, the comprehensive plan said we had outgrown our spot here, and 2009 comp plan, if you look back, says the Historical Society has to move. So we started that process. And fast forward a little bit, the floods of 2012, I was receiving a lot of pressure from the members at that time where they were saying, don't take the money from the city. If the food shelf wants in there so bad, make the food shelf do a fundraiser and give us the money. And I categorically fought against that with our members at that time. I know I had conversations with the UGM as the city administrator. What should we do? And we definitely wanted to get that food shelf in. I wanted to get that food shelf in.
Budget. And it's, I don't think you're even associated with school, are you, Jim?
Not at this point, no. We're just with the Historical Society. Would like to be doing more
that's what I
things
thought.
with the school. We'd like to sit down and see what we can do. But right now, again, what we have to do is we have to pay off our debts. We really can't go much farther on, and we have only a limited amount of money coming in to pay our debts, and that's primarily through the Club 225 fundraiser that continues at this point.
Okay, you heard,
And Mr. Mayor, I guess I fall somewhere in the middle because I see recommendations from two other city groups saying, yeah, give property to the school for $1. You know, here we have an asset. I don't know if we should totally forgive the loan because it's part of a precedent that, you know, may be exploited in the future by others, but I think we should take a closer look and try to come up with something reasonable and beneficial, because I'm with Councilor Weider that I don't know who will take over the Historical Society. And it's not like there's a lot of younger people stepping up. So I think their survival is paramount.
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor DeWall.
I don't disagree, and I very much would like to help them, but previous council and all those involved should have never called it a loan then. Should have just called it a grant. In my opinion, I got in late here, I see a loan on our books. It's a loan that we borrowed money and we need to collect back. I believe it will set a precedent for other people and other organizations that we already have loans with, and we're forcing them to pay back. I'm not opposed to looking to maybe cut through the middle a little bit